Now, let's talk about voting at correctional centers. There's a significant number of South Africans who believe that inmates should not be allowed to vote and question the vote of someone who's been imprisoned for life. But our Constitution recognizes inmates as members of society, and they too have rights that are upheld by our Constitution. Now, to make this clearer, Lerato Manaka, who's a prisoner's rights activist, who's also an ex-inmate, joins us now, and she'll paint a picture of what voting entails in correctional services, voter registration, campaigning, and voting day. Lerato, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Master Chaba. Thank you so much for having me.
So I see and understand that a number of, I believe it's 14,753 inmates at correctional facilities have registered to vote in the elections. And it seems, or rather, South Africa has the largest prison population on the continent, with over 157,000 incarcerated, right? So a relatively low number of prisoners who've registered to vote. Could you clarify these proportions for us first? All right. So, Lerato, I was just saying that South Africa has the largest number of inmates on the continent, and just over 14,000 have registered to vote, which is seemingly quite low. So I wanted you to weigh in on the proportion of prisoners who have registered to vote versus the number of prisoners who are actually incarcerated.
Okay. Thank you so much for the question. Look, we have about 240 centers in South Africa, and out of 240 centers, there's about perhaps 40% of those is illegal foreigners, not even illegal foreigners, let's just put it that way. And then only 60% are eligible to vote. So out of the 60%, we'll only be having like 10 or 20% going to vote on the national election days, voting days. Reason being is because some of the inmates, when they were incarcerated, at the time of incarceration, they didn't have their documents with them. And for instance, their ID books. So they don't have ID books, and it's impossible to have somebody whose hometown is in the Western Cape and you find that person is incarcerated in Pretoria, to have their family travel all the way to bring a document. And Department of Correctional Services as well. Mind you, I'm not speaking on behalf of Department of Correctional Services. I'm speaking on behalf of the Muthe Mogale Foundation. Department of Correctional Services as well has not done anything to assist inmates, to help them to get the documents, the ID documents, so that they can participate on the elections day. I mean, it's their democratic right, after all, to participate and be part of the elections.
Yeah, Lerato, what do you say to the naysayers who are anti-rights for prisoners, who say, but what are they voting for, especially those who are serving life in prison and will probably never see the light of day, or vote because you're not even going to enjoy the freedom?
Master, remember, we have fundamental human rights in South Africa, right? So basically, when you are a human being, the fact that you are alive, you've got a right. So even when you are incarcerated, you are still a human being behind the cells. So therefore, you still have the right to exercise your voice. The prison system that I feel the offenders need to stand up, and it's about time they exercise their voice when it comes to the prison system, because the prison system is failing so many of us, myself included, as an ex-offender.
Yeah, tell me about your experience as an ex-offender, if you don't mind. How long were you incarcerated? And when you say that the system is failing offenders, in what way?
Okay, I'm referring to the rehabilitation system. Let me start with how long I was incarcerated. I went in 2017. I was released in 2020. So I was detained for 2 years, 6 months, basically. The rehabilitation system, look, when you're inside, they can offer you all the rehabilitation programs. But what's the use when you are skilled and you come outside to the community that is not educated about rehabilitation, that does not give you second chances. They're not even willing to give you second chances. They're stigmatizing you everywhere you go. So I feel that the department should have invested more into educating the community about second chances. When I say the system is failing us, DCS is providing us rehabilitation programs while we're inside. As soon as you step outside, they are not there to hold your hand anymore. You're on your own. So basically, they were supposed to have faith in their own system that they have implemented. When I come out, they should be making sure that I am at least employed because they have corrected me. So if they don't have faith in their system, how then is the society going to believe that they're going to believe that I am corrected if DCS doesn't believe in their own system?
I definitely think that this speaks to community awareness around the importance of basically understanding why we should accept or embrace ex-cons when they come into communities. And the most important reason, of course, being to try and avert reoffending. Because often what happens is that if we don't embrace them and if we don't give people a second chance, they most likely will go back to committing crime. Now, what do you say to people who say, for instance, but I mean, you've mentioned the areas in which the rights of prisoners need to improve. What do you say to people who say, but why should my tax money be funding the education of someone who has committed a very heinous crime, such as rape or murder?
Okay, I believe that at the moment, the taxpayers, what's happening at the moment is that there's a huge burden on taxpayers because they don't see where their contribution is going. Like I'm saying, you invest in somebody as a taxpayer, you invest in somebody with the aim to correct this person. This person is supposed to come back to the society and actually be economical, beneficial to the society. So if you don't see that happening, it means your investments are going to waste. So what I'm saying to taxpayers is that by keeping them inside prison, we've got overpopulation. There's a serious problem of overpopulation inside our prison centers. All those people, and we've got serious problems of people that are eligible for parole, but they're still inside the correctional center. So it becomes a burden in that sense because they're paying taxpayer is contributing about 400 rands per day per inmate. So that's a whole lot of money. If you can take this person out to the community and make them give back to the community, then it will lessen the burden on taxpayers.
All right. So now, as the 29th of May is ahead of us, what happens at a typical correctional service voting station? Is there police presence? Are party agents present? Just paint us a picture.
Okay, it's a normal day. There's nothing exciting about voting on a voting day in prison, because simply because people in there don't have freedom. So there's no hype that we're having inside. There is no hype inside there, and we have observers and we have party agents. There's about 2 party agents per party that will be allocated per center, even though they won't be allowed to wear their regalia, because remember, they cannot even promote political parties inside the prison. This is where I feel the state has failed offenders as well. We are saying offenders need to exercise their rights, but to what exactly? Because the DCS did not give the platform to the offenders to be educated about different options they have of political parties and exactly what is it that they need to be voting for. So there is no campaigning that's allowed inside the correctional center, of which it's a total fail from our state. So yeah, so it's a normal day, nothing special about it, nothing fancy about it, although there'll be observers and party agents.
Thank you so much for your time, Lerato.
Thank you so much for having me.
Lerato Manaka, who's a prisoners' rights activist and an ex-inmate herself, and she's speaking on behalf of the Mudie Mohale Foundation as the CEO of Prisoners' Rights.